When that terrorist bomb exploded at an American barracks in Saudi Arabia 12 days ago, killing 19 airmen and wounding hundreds more, it became apparent that U.S. intelligence and military officials as well had underestimated the ability of the enemy to pull off such an attack. But it also pointed up the strange role that American servicemen play in Saudi Arabia. 5,000 soldiers and airmen who are very visible in the air over southern Iraq, making sure Saddam Hussein does not move his army back there to threaten his neighbors, but who are almost invisible on the ground. After the attack, American flags flew at half-staff at bases all over the world, except in Saudi Arabia, where it's forbidden to fly the U.S. flag at all out of respect for Saudi sensibilities. CBS News Middle East correspondent Bob Simon, on special assignment for 60 Minutes, found that the policy of near invisibility leaves American servicemen in Saudi Arabia feeling vulnerable.
Meet the top guns of the 4404th Provisional Wing, coming home after a day out over the desert. Up in the skies of southern Iraq, these guys feel confident they can handle anything Saddam Hussein's anti-aircraft system throws their way. But back on the ground among their Saudi allies, they feel like they're walking the plank. That's because they have to rely on the Saudis for protection. And last week's breach was not the first. Saudi security did not stop a bomb from killing 5 Americans at a military installation in Riyadh, the Saudi capital, last November. And they know that after that bombing, Americans asked the Saudis to move a fence that protects them at the Dhahran air base further back. The Saudis said no, and they said it shortly before the second bomb went off. That makes Captain Bob Rickard angry.
They fight every thing we try to do to protect ourselves even more, like moving the fence out and stuff like that. It seems like it's more important that we're not shown than to protect us, because we don't feel very safe. We're in the safest part of the country right here by the jets. Back home where we sleep at night, definitely isn't.
The mission to enforce the no-fly zone over southern Iraq didn't miss a beat after the bombing. The Americans provide almost all the pilots, the planes, and the crews. The Saudis provide the runways, pay the bills, and control virtually every aspect of American life in the desert.
Nobody's going to stand up to what they say. We pretty much do whatever they say. They can make up any kind of rule, and we'll pretty much go along with it.
Every airman on this base is involved in Operation Southern Watch, flying the unfriendly skies of Iraq. But the operation could also be mounted from friendlier countries in the region, less fundamentalist countries anyway. The Americans are really here in Saudi Arabia to protect Saudi oil, the Saudi regime, the Saudi way of life. And that's as far as you can get from just about everything Americans believe. There is no freedom of religion, no free speech, no free press. Political opposition is against the law. Women are discriminated against, can't even drive a car. The only public events permitted are prayers, sports, and public executions. All this means that American troops here are more than just strangers in a strange land. They protect Saudi Arabia, but they represent everything the conservative kingdom fears and loathes. The government fosters those feelings by encouraging anti-Western rhetoric from the mullahs in the mosques and on television. That's why the American flag can only be flown where it can't be seen, in the cockpit of an F-16, like the one Major Frank Ott took with him over Iraq.
Saudi's a very closed culture, and we are the infidels. And, you know, it's everyone in the world knows that Westerners pretty much are not welcome. The Saudis kind of being the home of Islam, so that creates some problems.
What does it feel like being an infidel?
I never really knew I was one till I was here. And
the situation makes Captain John Shrewsbury feel like a mercenary.
They've got the money, they're going to use it, and there may be times when we feel that way. And as an American, you're not used to feeling that way, ever, so...
What kind of feeling is it?
It's very humbling, to say the least.
Demeaning.
It's very demeaning.
Captain Dave Knox.
I mean, the whole country is filled with people doing other jobs for them, the jobs they don't want to do. And I believe there's more people in this country that are brought in to work for the Saudis than there are Saudis. And although we probably cost them a little bit more than the guy who's shoveling chow, sometimes I can't get away from the feeling that I feel like we're hired guns. I feel sometimes like we are Saudi Arabia's dirty little secret, and they want to keep us back in the closet and not let us out.
The feeling is much the same aboard a U.S. Air Force tanker 22,000 feet over the Saudi-Iraqi border. The pilot, Colonel Dale Bible, has heard plenty of bitter jokes about changing his name to Colonel Horan. Colonel Bible guides his plane through a delicate mating ritual with a squadron of F-16s at 500 miles an hour. It is a gas station in the sky. Back in the tanker's tail, the boom operator makes the final contact with the pilots of Redskin Squadron. Most are near the end of their 90-day tour patrolling Iraq.
Mako contact. He got me. Trumpet. How you read interphone, Redskin? Got you loud and clear. Got Bob Simon for you here. Are you ready to go home? Very much so. Have you seen enough of the Iraqis and the Saudis? I haven't seen enough of the Iraqis, but I've seen enough of the Saudis. Disconnect. Boom's clear. And receiver's clear to the right.
Those were thoughts from the sky. And back on the ground?
I know that if I ask you guys, this is your first tour here, it's almost over, do you want to come back? You're going to tell me that you're Air Force men and you'll do whatever your orders are and you will do your duty, and I believe you. You guys want to come back?
No way.
When I go 8,000 miles away from my wife, who sits at home by herself, I want it to be for a good reason. I would rather go somewhere where I feel like we're there for a good reason and the people that I'm there to protect want me there instead of whatever.
Prince Bandar knows all about fighter pilots. He used to be one. Flew F-15s in the Royal Saudi Air Force. That was before he became the kingdom's ambassador to Washington.
We talked to some American pilots yesterday. And they were pretty resentful. They said that they feel here as if they are Saudi Arabia's dirty little secret.
I'm sorry to hear that. Maybe it's an emotional reaction to loss of comrades or something like that. Maybe that guy had a bad breakfast that morning. I don't know, but I can assure you, neither the Saudi government nor the Saudi people consider those people other than friends, and we're grateful to the job they're doing, and we're doing it together.
One of the things the Saudis and Americans do together, according to Prince Bandar, is cooperate closely on security. But U.S. officials now say they were not allowed to interrogate the Islamic fundamentalists arrested for the November bombing in Riyadh. They were shown on Saudi TV, though, just before they were beheaded.
Did any of the American agencies, the FBI, the CIA, military intelligence, request to have a chat with these guys before they lost their heads?
I'm glad you asked me this question because it's been asked. We and you have difference in philosophy on security. We think it is dumb to broadcast to the terrorist what we did or didn't do or will do. We think there was too much information given. To fight terrorism seriously, we must protect sometimes the truth, even with a bodyguard of lies, like Churchill said once before.
What's going on here, Your Highness? You think this is the first time that there has been open American criticism of Saudi cooperation? Are the American politicians just trying to save themselves? Is that what's going on?
Good God, would you think politicians will do things like this, Mr. Simon? Absolutely not.
As for that too-close security fence at the Dhahran Air Base, the prince says it's all Monday morning quarterbacking.
I have not heard one complaint as far as the security from any American I have met, whether it's a lieutenant or a sergeant or a general.
Major General Kurt Anderson, the man in charge of Operation Southern Watch, sees it differently. Anderson says the perimeter fence, like all security questions, was a matter of delicate negotiations with the Saudis.
at 2 different times at a working level. Requests were made of Saudi security personnel to move the particular barrier out, farther away. And the response was no. It wasn't a, we don't care, therefore no. It was, we care, we need to work with you on force protection issues.
Do you think that after what happened, that when an American says, I want this to happen for the safety of the American men and women here, it's going to happen? Can you see to that?
I would expect so.
One thing that's apparently not going to change, though, is the ban on showing the flag. A tough thing for an Air Force general to accept. How do you feel about it?
Certainly, I love my flag, and I fly it every day at home, or my wife is doing it for me now. And it's important to me.
Stars and Stripes were flown at half-staff all over the United States.
Yes, they were.
After the bombing, they were not flown at half-staff on the base where the Americans were killed.
That is not to say there was not a whole lot of grieving at that base. That flag was at half-staff in everybody's heart.
So what I'm getting at, General, is you've indicated, and other Americans have indicated here, how we Americans, you American military men, bend over backwards not to offend the Saudis, to respect their sensitivities. Isn't it time that they began respecting ours?
I would say they do to some degree, but I would say sensitivities and emotions are different in this part of the world.
Why are you embarrassed, you Americans, for being sensitive to other people's culture? Americans I meet outside Washington, in Valdosta, Georgia, in Spokane, Washington, in Sherman, Texas, are nice people. So I don't see why now this is considered as negative for America to be sensitive and to other people's cultures.
Whose decision is it that we don't fly the flag here? Is it an American decision or a Saudi decision?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
The pilots of the 4404th Provisional Wing finally did get to see flags flying at half-staff in honor of the fallen, but the flags were half a world away at a memorial service in Florida. They listened somberly as President Clinton read off the names of the 19 who died in Dhahran. Every time men or women die in the service of their country, people want to know why. Was it worth it? There never has been, never could be a definitive answer, but every airman on this base today is struggling with the question. So that's what it comes down to. 19 guys died in a country which we're defending because it's got a lot of oil.
It's an American national interest, and it's just hard to equate human lives for slimy black stuff. It doesn't add up if you look at it that way, but it is a foundation of our culture, virtually, is what I look at it.
That is one answer. There are others. General Anderson has spent 29 years in the Air Force, including a stint in Vietnam. He says he's never been shaken like this.
Military people have their hopes and dreams. But we give them up to serve our country. And sometimes some people give them up forever. And that's very, very unfortunate. But at the same time, the fact that we have people willing to do that makes me so very proud. And if you can't be proud of that, and those who do it, you can't be proud at all.
And after what you saw and what it's done to you, you still have faith in this mission?
Absolutely.
We belong here.
Absolutely.
And the Saudis deserve to have us here.
America deserves to have us here.
Last week, Defense Secretary William Perry visited the bombed-out barracks and said that he is considering moving all U.S. personnel in Saudi Arabia to more secure locations. As for the lapses in security which permitted the bombing, at least 3 congressional committees will begin hearings next week on who or what was responsible.